My name is Officer Daniel Carter, and what I'm about to share with you changed my life forever. On January 12, 2025, I didn't just have a brush with death. I actually died for 7 minutes and 34 seconds. During that time, I found myself standing before Jesus Christ, who revealed truths about the fires in Los Angeles that I was commanded to share with the world. What I learned in those 7 minutes and 34 seconds will shake you to your core. Let me tell you how it happened. The day it happened felt unremarkable. Hollywood was bustling as always, with tourists snapping pictures of the Walk of Fame, actors rushing to auditions, and locals weaving through the chaos of it all. As I cruised down Sunset Boulevard, I thought about heading home after my shift. My wife, Claire, had mentioned wanting to watch a new movie with our son, Tyler. I had promised I wouldn't stay late again. Promises like that always felt fragile in this line of work. Around noon, the call came in over the radio. All available units, respond to a fire reported near Fairfax and Melrose. Possible spread to a studio lot. Fires weren't uncommon in the dry hills of Los Angeles, but the urgency in the dispatcher's voice made my stomach tighten. I flipped on my lights and sirens and sped toward the scene, weaving through the midday traffic. Smoke was already visible from miles away, a thick column of gray rising into the otherwise clear sky. When I arrived, the situation was worse than I'd imagined. Flames roared like a living beast, tearing through the edge of a soundstage and threatening nearby buildings. Studio employees were running in all directions, their faces pale with panic. Fire crews were already on site, battling the inferno, but the wind wasn't on our side. It carried embers that ignited nearby structures, spreading the chaos faster than anyone could contain it. Amid the shouting and confusion, I heard a scream. A man was trapped near the collapsing wall of a storage facility adjacent to the studio. Without hesitation, I ran toward him, ignoring the heat and smoke that stung my lungs and blurred my vision. I reached him, pulled him to his feet, and began guiding him back toward safety. That's when it happened. A deafening crack split the air as a section of the building gave way. I didn't have time to think, let alone react. The last thing I felt was the searing heat and the weight of debris slamming into me. Darkness swallowed everything, and in that moment, I knew my life had come to an end, but that's just scratching the surface. The first thing I noticed was the absence of pain. One moment, I was crushed beneath rubble, my body heavy and broken, and the next, I felt weightless, like I was floating in water. Took me a moment to understand what was happening. When I opened my eyes, or at least it felt like opening them, I saw myself. My body was lying beneath the wreckage, still, lifeless. The sight should have terrified me, but instead, I felt an eerie calm. I hovered above the chaos, watching as firefighters scrambled to dig me out. Paramedics rushed to my side, their movements swift and methodical. I could hear them calling out medical terms, their voices strained with urgency. No pulse, starting compressions. I wanted to tell them to stop, to let it be. I wasn't suffering anymore, but I couldn't. My voice didn't work, my body unresponsive to the commands I tried to give it. Time felt strange, like it had stretched and warped. I saw everything with startling clarity. The way the flames reflected in the paramedics' helmets, the fear in the faces of the onlookers, the ash falling like snow over the chaos. Even the man I'd saved was there, clutching a blanket and staring at the scene with wide, tear-filled eyes. It hit me then. I had done what I could, and now it was over. Then, something shifted. The noise of the scene below began to fade, replaced by a silence so profound it felt alive. I was no longer just floating above the wreckage. I was being pulled upward. A tunnel of light appeared before me, brighter than anything I'd ever seen yet soothing to look at. The light wasn't just bright. It was alive, pulsing with an energy that I could feel in the core of my being. I felt myself drawn into the tunnel, moving faster than I thought possible. As I ascended, the earthly world fell away, its sounds and sights growing dimmer until they disappeared completely. What replaced them was unlike anything I could have imagined. The light surrounded me, warm and welcoming, and I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. It was as though every worry, Every regret, every fear I'd ever carried was lifted from me. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't confused. I was home, and somehow, deep in my soul, I knew that what lay ahead was far greater than anything I had left behind. The light surrounded me, filling every part of my being with warmth, love, and a sense of peace so profound it defied explanation. The realm I found myself in was unlike anything I could have imagined. Colors I had never seen before danced and shimmered in the air, and a sound unlike any music on earth seemed to flow through the very fabric of the place. It wasn't just a melody. It was a harmony that resonated deep within me, as though every part of my soul was being tuned to it. I stood, or at least I felt like I stood, on a surface that wasn't solid yet supported me perfectly. The air itself seemed alive, pulsing with an energy that felt like love in its purest form. For a moment, I was overwhelmed, not by fear but by the sheer magnitude of what I was experiencing. I felt small, yet fully known, as if this place had been waiting for me all along. And then I saw him. At first, I could only sense his presence, an overwhelming wave of love and authority that filled the space around me. Then he appeared, stepping forward from the radiant light. Jesus. There was no mistaking it. His presence was undeniable, his form both familiar and indescribable. His eyes, deep and endless, seemed to look right into the core of who I was. Every flaw, every failure, every moment of doubt and fear, all of it was laid bare before him. And yet, his gaze was filled with such love and compassion that I couldn't look away. "Daniel," he said, his voice more than sound. It was a truth that resonated through every fiber of my being. "You are here for a purpose." I fell to my knees, or at least it felt like kneeling. The weight of his presence wasn't oppressive. It was humbling, as though standing before the source of all love and goodness left no room for pride. "Lord," I said, though my words weren't spoken aloud. They flowed from my soul to his, carried on a current of thought. "Why am I here?" He reached out, helping me to my feet. "There is something you need to see, something you must share. The fires you died trying to stop are more than just physical flames. They are a symptom of a greater darkness, one that has taken root in the hearts of many. You have been chosen to carry this message, to warn and to prepare." The gravity of his words filled me with awe and a deep sense of responsibility. Whatever lay ahead, I knew my life, my very existence, was now bound to this purpose. With a wave of his hand, Jesus transformed the radiant realm into a vision of earth. I saw the Hollywood Hills, smoke rising from their peaks as flames devoured everything in their path. It was the fire I had died trying to contain, but this time I saw it from a perspective that wasn't limited to the physical. Behind the flames, I could see something darker, something spiritual, a shadowy force feeding the destruction. "This fire," Jesus said, his voice filled with both sorrow and authority, "is not merely a natural disaster. It is the result of choices, of actions taken in darkness and selfishness. Greed, corruption, and moral decay have opened the door to these forces." As he spoke, the vision shifted, showing scenes from the heart of Hollywood. I saw boardrooms where executives made decisions driven solely by profit, disregarding the impact their films and shows had on society. Scripts promoting violence, immorality, and despair were greenlit because they promised box office success. Awards ceremonies celebrated projects that glorified self-indulgence and materialism. "Every choice ripples outward," Jesus continued. "The entertainment industry holds a unique power. It shapes culture, influences minds, and molds the hearts of generations. But instead of using that power to uplift and inspire, many have used it to sow division, fear, and spiritual emptiness." He showed me a scene of a famous actor standing on a stage, accepting an award. Behind the applause and glittering lights, I saw chains wrapped around them. Chains of pride, addiction, and despair. "They are celebrated on earth, but their souls are bound," Jesus said. "They have traded truth for illusion, and their influence draws others into the same trap." I saw another scene, this one more disturbing. A group of young children gathered around a screen, absorbing images and messages that seemed innocent on the surface but carried a hidden darkness. The enemy works subtly, Jesus said. He disguises lies as entertainment, twisting what is good into tools of deception. Tears streamed from my eyes. Tears of sorrow for what I was seeing, and for the part one had unknowingly played as someone who had admired this industry without questioning its deeper effects. Lord, I said, my voice trembling, how can this be stopped? Jesus looked at me, his eyes filled with both determination and hope. It begins with truth, he said. Those who see must speak. Those who understand must act. The fires consuming Hollywood are not just physical, they are spiritual. And the only way to extinguish them is with light, with love, with righteousness. The vision ended, and I was left standing before him once again. Will you carry this message, Daniel? He asked. Yes, Lord, I said without hesitation, though my heart felt heavy with the weight of what I had seen. I'll do whatever you ask. His gaze softened, and he placed a hand on my shoulder. You will not walk this path alone. My light will guide you, and my strength will sustain you. Go now, and tell the world what you have seen. With those words, I felt myself being drawn back toward the earthly realm, my mission etched into the core of my soul. As the vision shifted again, I found myself standing in a luxurious Hollywood mansion. The walls were lined with art worth more than most people's homes, and the air was heavy with an aura of wealth and excess. But what struck me most wasn't the splendor. It was the darkness that seemed to cling to everything, a shadow invisible to the physical yet undeniable in the spiritual realm. These are the places where the enemy's deception thrives, Jesus said, his voice calm but resolute. Fame, power, and wealth are not evil in themselves, but they are tools the enemy uses to lead people away from truth. I watched as the scene unfolded, revealing the life of a famous actor. On the surface, their life seemed perfect. Red carpets, adoring fans, and endless opportunities. But as I observed more closely, I could see the chains that bound them. Each decision they made, whether to accept a role, endorse a product, or make a public statement, was driven not by freedom but by fear. Fear of losing relevance, fear of being rejected, fear of not living up to the expectations placed upon them. Behind the glamour, I saw spiritual forces at work, whispering lies into their hearts. You need more, the voices said. More money, more fame, more control. Only then will you be truly happy. And so, they kept striving, climbing higher and higher, only to find the emptiness inside them growing deeper with every step. I turned to Jesus, my heart heavy with sorrow. Lord, why can't they see what's happening to them? They are blinded, he replied. The enemy's greatest weapon is deception, and those who are surrounded by comfort and applause rarely seek the truth. They mistake the fleeting pleasures of this world for lasting joy, not realizing they are being drawn further from the light. The vision shifted again, and I saw a powerful Hollywood executive in a boardroom. They were reviewing a script, making decisions about what would be produced. The script in their hands promoted violence and immorality, but they approved it without hesitation. It will sell, they said. That's all that matters. As I watched, I saw how these decisions trickled down to the everyday lives of people. A family sat together in their living room, watching the movie the executive had approved. The parents were distracted, the children absorbed in scenes that subtly glorified selfishness and materialism. What seemed like harmless entertainment was shaping their hearts and minds, drawing them away from each other and from God. This is how the enemy works, Jesus said. He uses influence to spread his lies, weaving them into the fabric of culture. What begins in the halls of power reaches into the homes of everyday people, shaping their values and desires without them even realizing it. I felt a wave of sadness wash over me, but Jesus placed a hand on my shoulder. Do not lose hope, he said. Truth can break through the darkest deception, and light always overcomes the shadows. The scene around us changed again, this time to something far more sobering. I found myself standing in a vast, desolate landscape. The air was thick with despair, and the ground beneath my feet felt cold and lifeless. Souls moved aimlessly through the space, their faces etched with sorrow and regret. "These are the eternal consequences," Jesus said, his voice heavy with sadness. "What begins as small choices, embracing greed, promoting immorality, valuing fame over truth, leads to this. When people reject the light, they separate themselves from the source of all life and love." I watched as the souls tried to grasp at the shadows around them, searching for something to fill the emptiness within. But nothing satisfied. The wealth, power, and fame they had pursued in life now seemed meaningless, their glow extinguished in this place. "Lord," I said, my voice trembling, "how did it come to this?" Jesus looked at me, his expression filled with both sorrow and compassion. "It happens gradually," he explained. "The enemy doesn't show the cost up front. He offers pleasure, success, and security, hiding the truth of where those choices lead. And as people become more entangled in his lies, their hearts grow harder, their eyes blind to the truth." I was shown families torn apart by the effects of these decisions. Parents consumed by ambition neglected their children, leaving them to be raised by a culture that valued appearance over substance, wealth over character. Communities once united by faith and shared purpose were now divided, consumed by materialism and distrust. Jesus then showed me a terrifying scene. Fires burning not just in Hollywood but across the world. These fires weren't physical, they were spiritual, consuming everything in their path. They represented the destruction caused by sin, greed, and the rejection of God's truth. "These fires," Jesus said, "are a warning. They are the physical manifestation of a spiritual reality, a call for repentance before it is too late. But many will ignore them, dismissing them as mere disasters, never realizing they are signs of something deeper." I felt an overwhelming sense of sorrow for the souls lost in this darkness, but Jesus' presence anchored me. "There is still hope," he said, his voice filled with unwavering love. "My light can penetrate even the deepest darkness. Those who turn to me will find redemption, no matter how far they have strayed." He showed me a final scene, one of hope. Small groups of believers standing firm in their faith, offering love and truth to those around them. Their light pushed back the shadows, creating spaces where healing and restoration could begin. "Tell them," Jesus said, looking into my eyes, "tell them that these fires are not the end but the beginning of an awakening. Tell them that my love is greater than any darkness, and those who turn to me will find life, even in the midst of destruction." His words filled me with a sense of purpose, and I knew that this message was not just for me but for everyone. The fires were a warning, yes, but they were also an invitation, a chance to choose light over darkness, truth over lies, and life over death. The desolate landscape began to fade, replaced once again by the radiant light of Jesus' presence. His expression was both solemn and hopeful, as though the weight of the world rested on his shoulders, yet he carried it with unshakable grace. I stood before him, humbled and overwhelmed, as he began to speak. "Daniel," he said, his voice resonating with authority, "humanity holds the power to stop the fires, but not through physical means. No amount of water or strategy can extinguish what is spiritual in nature. The fires are born of hearts turned away from the truth, and only transformed hearts can bring an end to them." I listened intently, my spirit absorbing every word as if it were etched into my very being. Jesus began to outline the steps necessary for change, steps that seemed simple yet profound in their power. "First," he said, "there must be prayer. True prayer, not as a ritual or obligation, but as a heartfelt connection with me. When people pray in faith, they align their will with mine, and through that alignment, the power of heaven is released on earth." He paused, allowing the significance of his words to sink in. "Second, there must be repentance. Humanity must turn away from the lies they have embraced, the greed, the pride, the pursuit of fleeting pleasures, and seek forgiveness. I stand ready to forgive, but they must first acknowledge their need for it." I nodded, understanding the depth of what he was asking. Repentance wasn't about guilt. It was about transformation, a turning away from darkness and toward the light. "Third," he continued, "awareness must be spread. My people must not remain silent in the face of deception. They must speak truth boldly, not with anger or condemnation, but with love and compassion. The world needs to know what is at stake, and it is through my people that this message will be carried. I felt a surge of purpose within me as he spoke, though it was tinged with doubt. Lord, I asked, how can I, one person, make a difference in a world so vast and broken? Jesus smiled, his eyes filled with understanding. You are not alone, Daniel. I will be with you, and you will not walk this path by yourself. The light of one faithful soul can ignite the hearts of many. Your task is not to save the world, that is my role. Your task is to deliver the message and trust that I will do the rest. With those words, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, replaced by a sense of purpose unlike anything I had ever known. I knew what I had to do, and though the road ahead would be difficult, I was ready to walk it. Jesus raised his hand, and the scene around us shifted once more. This time, the darkness was replaced by a breathtaking vision of light and beauty. I found myself standing in a world transformed, a world where love, unity, and faith had triumphed over darkness. The first thing I noticed was the peace. It wasn't just the absence of conflict, but a deep, pervasive harmony that seemed to flow through every part of creation. People moved through their lives with joy and purpose, their faces radiant with kindness and contentment. Communities thrived, bound together by bonds of genuine care and mutual respect. This is what is possible, Jesus said, his voice filled with hope. If my people respond to the call, if they turn to me and allow their hearts to be transformed, the world can become a reflection of my kingdom. I saw families gathered in their homes, their conversations filled with love and understanding. Churches were alive with worship, their doors open to all who sought truth and healing. Even the entertainment industry had been transformed. The vision showed Hollywood producing films and music that uplifted, inspired, and honored God. The stories being told weren't about glorifying sin or self, but about celebrating redemption, courage, and the beauty of creation. How does this happen? I asked, marveling at the transformation. Jesus turned to me, his expression both firm and gentle. It begins with the faithful, he said. Even a small group of believers, united in prayer and purpose, can spark a revival that spreads far beyond their reach. Just as darkness spreads through subtle deception, so does light spread through acts of love and truth. He showed me scenes of these faithful believers, small groups gathering in prayer, supporting one another, and reaching out to their communities. Their efforts were humble, often unnoticed by the world, but their impact was profound. I saw how their light pushed back the shadows, one act of kindness, one word of truth at a time. These fires, Jesus said, referring to the physical and spiritual flames, are not the end. They are an opportunity, a call to wake up, to see the truth, and to choose a different path. My people have the power to change the course of history, not through force but through faith. The vision filled me with hope, a hope that burned brighter than the fires I had seen. I realized that the transformation Jesus spoke of wasn't just possible, it was already beginning. The seeds had been planted, and it was up to us to nurture them. As the vision faded, I turned to Jesus, my heart overflowing with gratitude and determination. I'll deliver the message, I said, my voice steady. I'll do everything I can to help bring this vision to life. Jesus smiled, his light filling me with strength. Go now, and trust that I will be with you every step of the way. The light is already shining. It just needs to be shared. With those words, I felt myself being drawn back to the earthly realm. My mission clear, my heart ignited with hope. The radiant vision of hope lingered in my mind, its beauty and promise filling me with a longing to stay in this heavenly realm. I turned to Jesus, my heart heavy with the knowledge that my time here was coming to an end. Lord, I said, my voice trembling with emotion, I don't want to leave. This place feels more like home than anywhere I've ever known. How can I return to the world after seeing this? Jesus placed his hand gently on my shoulder, and his gaze met mine, filled with love and understanding. Daniel, he said, your time here is over, but your mission is just beginning. What you have seen is not just for you, it is for the world. They need to know the truth, to see the light, and to understand the power of faith and love. I am sending you back as my messenger. Though his words filled me with purpose, I couldn't deny the reluctance in my heart. How could I return to a world of chaos and darkness after experiencing such peace? Jesus seemed to know my thoughts before I spoke them. You will not be alone, he reassured me. My light will go with you, and my spirit will guide you. Remember what you have seen and trust in me. The seeds you plant may not always bear fruit immediately, but they will grow in time. I nodded, though a lump rose in my throat. I'll do whatever you ask, Lord. Just help me to be strong. His smile radiated warmth and strength, filling me with the courage I needed. You already are, he said. Now go and tell them. The light around me began to shift, pulling me gently but irresistibly away from his presence. I felt the sensation of being drawn downward, back through the tunnel I had traveled before. The heavenly music faded, replaced by the muffled sounds of the earthly world. Suddenly, I gasped for air, my eyes snapping open. The bright lights of a hospital room came into focus, and I was surrounded by a flurry of movement. Doctors and nurses stood frozen, their faces a mixture of shock and awe. He's back, one of them whispered. We thought we lost him. Tears streamed down the face of a nurse I recognized. Sarah, my closest friend on the force. Daniel, she said, gripping my hand, you were gone. We thought you were gone. I tried to speak, but my throat felt raw, as if I'd been silent for years. Eventually, I managed a hoarse whisper. I'm here, and there's so much I need to tell you. The room fell silent, the weight of the moment sinking in. Though my body felt weak, my spirit burned with a renewed sense of purpose. I had been sent back for a reason, and I knew my work was just beginning. It's been 6 months since that day in the hospital, and my life has been forever changed. Not a moment goes by when I don't think about what I saw in the heavenly realm or the message Jesus entrusted to me. At first, sharing my experience felt daunting. How do you tell people something so extraordinary without sounding delusional or fanatical? But I quickly realized that it wasn't my job to convince anyone. It was simply to speak the truth. I started small, sharing my story with family and close friends. Some listened with awe, others with skepticism, but the reactions didn't matter as much as the message. Slowly, word spread and invitations began to come in, to speak at churches, community events, and even online platforms. Each time, I shared the same truth. The fires consuming our world, both literal and spiritual, are a call to action, a warning that cannot be ignored. I spoke about what Jesus showed me, how greed, corruption, and moral decay in industries like Hollywood have opened the door to darkness. How the choices we make, even the small ones, ripple outward to affect countless lives. But more importantly, I shared the hope he revealed, the vision of a world transformed by love, unity, and faith. Not everyone believed me. I faced my share of ridicule and doubt, but I've also witnessed incredible moments of transformation. I've seen people move to tears as they realize the truth of their own lives, turning away from destructive paths and embracing faith. I've seen communities come together in prayer, building networks of support and accountability. And I've seen glimmers of hope even in the darkest places. One day, I was invited to speak at a small church near Hollywood. After sharing my story, a young filmmaker approached me, his eyes filled with conviction. I've been part of the problem, he admitted. I've produced things I knew were wrong, but I justified it because it paid the bills. Hearing your story, it's like God is telling me it's not too late to change. He wasn't alone. People like him, artists, executives, and everyday individuals began to reach out, asking how they could be part of the solution. It's not about grand gestures or immediate results. It's about small acts of faithfulness, steps toward light that grow into something greater. As I stand before each audience, I end with the same message Jesus gave me. The fires can be stopped, but not with water hoses or legislation. They can only be extinguished by a transformation of the heart. Prayer, repentance, and love are the only way forward. It starts with each of us, choosing faith over fear, truth over deception, and love over selfishness. And so I ask you, whoever you are reading this, to make that choice. The fires aren't just consuming Hollywood. They're consuming the world, and we all play a part in either fueling them or extinguishing them. Jesus showed me that even the smallest light can pierce the greatest darkness, and that no soul is ever beyond redemption. The question isn't whether the fires can be stopped. The question is, will we choose to stop them? The answer lies in your hands, in your heart, and in the love that binds us all. May you choose wisely. Want to hear more of this? Then click on the video on the right-hand side, which is even more insane.